Right, how's it going? Welcome to episode, I believe, 7 of Hype for Hoops. We're going to talk about today a very popular player, Steph Curry. And I just want to know, just to get the ball rolling, do you guys believe that this year, especially I guess the last few couple weeks, does Steph Curry have any reason, do you think, to be in the MVP conversation?
Technically, yes. He's the most
Okay.
important player on his team. I forget what the actual statistics for it were, but when he's not in the lineup, they're dreadful, and when he's in the lineup, they have a chance to win. So, is that an MVP? As in, is he making the team able to like win a championship? No. Is it an MVP that if he's not there, the team is completely awful? Yes. So he is basically the team. Whether that's an MVP or not, I don't know. Maybe.
Way to sit on the fence on that.
Thank you. Really good riding that fence.
I would put him in the conversation. He deserves to be in the conversation for MVP.
Okay.
Like he can carry. He's probably, if it goes according to plan, he could carry them to a playoff spot in the West, which is pretty impressive. And the way he's shooting the ball is insane. I would put him on the list. I might vote for him myself if they gave me a vote.
Oh yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, best shooter arguably when it's all said and done, man. And he's on a tear, especially like you guys are saying, like past 2 weeks or so.
Mhm.
Man, this guy like without him, the Warriors are nothing, man. They're like nothing. It's definitely in my MVP.
But at the same time, you could say he's making a conversation for it. But how can you vote him ahead of Embiid or Jokic, right? Like that's getting a team that's probably going to go deeper in the playoffs probably means more than getting a team that without him would be awful into the playoffs.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think he's gonna win it, but I think he's in the MVP race for sure. Like he's his name should be mentioned. His name definitely should be mentioned.
Mhm.
If he's gonna win it, I don't think so. I don't
No.
think so. Like you said,
No,
I
not
think,
at
like,
all.
Embiid or
Well, I was just gonna say some of it has to do with like the way they give out the MVP. When they actually give it out, it's kind of like an Oscar, right? It's like this person deserves like career recognition. He hasn't gotten it before. Curry's already won it twice, so let's give it to the new guy. They always have this weird sort of like calculation, and they're not necessarily going by on who's the best right now.
That's true.
So he actually is at a disadvantage because he has those two previous MVPs in that sense. But anyways, Jay, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I think he should be in the conversation, but there are other players that are ahead of him, Jokic, Embiid, and there's Giannis, of course. Yeah, he should be in that conversation. Luka, I mean, there's some great players, but for sure he should be in that conversation, especially this year when he's really carrying the team. Previous years you see him win the MVP, but he had some other players with him. But this year, for sure, he should be getting some recognition. He's not going to win it, then yeah, I don't think he should win it, but he should be in that conversation.
Do you think a team's record should be in that calculation? I don't have the stat off the top of my head, but I'm positive that no MVP has ever been on a losing team. But I'm just saying, since the Warriors are maybe probably going to like possibly squeak into the playoffs, do you think that you can hold that against Curry and just say, well, there's, like, as Stefan just said, Embiid and Jokic are on teams that are much better. So do you think that should weigh into it at all?
Well, being on a good team, if you're on a good team, that if your record is good, that just means that you're doing it's so easy to play to score like 30 something points, right? On a bad team. Doing it on a really good team, now that's hard because you have other good players around you. You are the go-to man on a good team. Just more credit to you with your record and with you scoring that many points or getting that many rebounds, doing whatever you can to make the team better and make them succeed. More credit to you. It's very easy to do that on a shitty team. Like, fuck, we look at who you like, the Raptors, like right now. People are battling it out, trying and the Raptors are not doing very well. But there are players that are just like getting ridiculous numbers now, and like Chris Boucher, he's putting up monster numbers. Is it that he's really that good? No, it's just because the Raptors are really mediocre right now.
And this is just a question about Steph Curry and the overall picture. Obviously, his career is not over, and I don't think it can be argued that he is the greatest shooter. He will easily break Ray Allen's record. I think it was projected maybe mid next season or mid next or the season after that. Something ridiculous. Where does he fall in all of your like just rankings of players of all time? Is he even in the conversation for that for you, or top 25, top 50? I doubt top 10 for anybody. I feel like that's kind of pushing it, but just let me know.
Maybe like top 25. I'd give him like if I'm rating him in terms of like the point guard status, just that position alone. I think when it's all said and done, I think maybe top 5 in that category.
Okay.
Definitely one of the best shooters ever, and this dude has like 3 rings already and 2 MVPs. Is it 2 MVPs or so? So he's definitely, when it's all said and done, he's gonna be definitely in my top 5 at least. Definitely my top 5.
Point guards.
For point guards,
yeah. I don't think I can name a better shooting point guard than Steph Curry. He's number 1 for me when it comes to point guard.
Over Magic? Shit.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of shooting?
Shooting. But I mean, like, overall position of point guard, I still think Magic over Curry. Just because Curry is, like, the offensive way, but Magic, both sides of the ball, and he's still offensively very gifted as well.
The problem is the game is different, and Curry himself is responsible for the change of the game.
Exactly.
So, like, there probably are other guys that if you took, like, Larry Bird and started his career in 2010 until now, or 2015, he'd amass a ton of three-pointers too, right? Like, the fact that he's going to have the most is because the game is completely different now than it was like 20, 30 years ago. Personally, when I watch him play, I don't think of him as a pure point guard the way you used to watch like Isaiah Thomas and John Stockton, even Magic Johnson. Like, those guys were really like pass first, right? It was all about setting guys up. Curry is like a dude who, because he's so good at shooting, it opens up the floor for him to make passes and make other plays and penetrate. But I really think of him as a shooter. He's really like a very, very unique player. I have trouble comparing him to any of these guys except maybe Steve Nash. Kind of reminds me of him, except Nash was also a bit heavier on the pass side. Like, I feel like if Nash had played 10 years later, he would have played it. He would have played a little bit differently, and they'd be kind of similar. So I don't know. Like, if I was gonna rank him, I might put him like if I was playing like NBA 2K whatever, building my all-time roster, I would put Steph Curry as the shooting guard on that team, and I'd put another guy at point guard actually.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more unique point guards that has ever played the game. From like the fact that he was allowed to shoot all that much. So from that aspect alone, you have to have him probably top 25. Like, he's probably assuming you have in your top 25 5 of each position, he would have to be in there, right?
Okay.
How you want to rank those 25 players, like one over the other, that's a completely different thing. But yeah, he's definitely within the top 5 point guards of all time. I would argue that maybe Magic and maybe Stockton would be the only 2 above him in the top 5. Like, I don't know who else you could put in there.
Isaiah Thomas.
Maybe. Well, yeah, maybe. But I don't know if I'd put him above Steph. I guess that's my point, right? Like, yeah. So I don't know. Top 25 for sure, but how high in that? Not sure.
Top 10. At the bottom of the top 10, I would say.
Oh, like every player of all time?
Point guard, we're talking about it, right?
Okay. No, I was like, well, Graydon switched it. Not to say that was bad, but he was just saying he was in his top 5 point guards. But my initial question is, where's he in your like top players of all time?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is he even like in the conversation for you for considering?
No, he's not in the top 10.
No, definitely
Not in the
top.
top
No,
10.
no, 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 no. That's
No.
ridiculous. That's like
No. I'm getting confused with the question here because we were
no
talking
point
about
guards. I
point
think
guard.
point guards. I think we can all agree he's up there.
Yeah.
But all time, like, does he crack your top 25? Does he crack your top 50? Top 10? I don't think anybody's saying top 10 though.
Top 25, no. Top 25, yes. Top
Okay,
10, no.
okay.
He's somewhere in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. The top 5 are guys who can win a championship almost by themselves. Like,
Oh, okay.
those are guys like
Mhm.
that you put them plus like a side, a side dish, and you can compete for titles, right? Curry, I don't, as crazy good shooter as he is, he's not that good. I think because of his size, right? That
Yes.
like they had to construct a pretty strong team around him to be able to win. But still, hats off to him. But I just won't put him in the Magic Johnson category.
So what Dave is saying is Curry is a better side dish.
I mean, his team was the backcourt is pretty crazy. Like he spent the bulk of his career playing against maybe playing with the second best shooter of his generation, right? The two of them. So like that is a crazy backcourt, right? So and then they picked up Durant for those other championship runs. So I feel like overall, just because he changed the game so much, that will boost him up in this rankings business, but not enough to crack the top 10.
Fair enough. And I think that point is such a great point to make, Dave, just in the sense, like, think of players who have actually shaped the game of basketball, who changed it. Like Wilt Chamberlain changed to how like the rules of basketball were.
Yeah.
And then there was Steph Curry. He made the three a real thing, and we're living in the aftermath of that right now. All right, so we might be this topic might be a little controversial, but hey, I feel like we should talk about these kind of things, and it was kind of inspired by a podcast I listened to. It's Dave's podcast. Dave, which is the one about sports books?
Oh, the sports literati.
All right, so Dave has many podcasts. Dave, do you want to just like list them off quickly? Just why not?
So the sports literati is this podcast where me and another guy, we read a sports book once a month, and then we talk about it. And I also do a show called Medical Dads, which is about parenting. And I also do another show called Unique Stories, where I interview people.
All right, so Dave's first book he read was about the Lakers. The title was which one, Dave? Sorry,
It's called Three Ring Circus. It's by Jeff Pearlman. It's a book that talks about the Kobe Shaq dynasty from the early 2000s. So they go in deep behind the scenes of what that feud was like, basically.
All right. So I'm not going to dive too deep in that. Dave's obviously probably going to fill in some gaps if I have any, or, provide some background knowledge on the situation. But I just want to know, just in terms of how we view athletes, this, like I said, this is going to be a little touchy, so I apologize if the content is a little, makes you uncomfortable, but I think that's good to kind of spark the conversation. So just in the case of Kobe Bryant, so in the book, they're talking about his relationship with Shaq, and Dave and his co-host were talking about how, I don't know what year, I can't remember what year it was, but when he had the allegation of rape against him, and it was, I mean, like in court, it wasn't proven, but I think the book kind of says otherwise, just like other facts on the situation. It goes into, I believe Dave said, some kind of uncomfortable details on the whole situation. But I'm just saying, with Kobe and that, just with certain athletes, do we kind of like turn a blind eye to these situations? I mean, I feel like in the latter part of Kobe's career, even before he passed away, this kind of thing wasn't really brought up again. Even though we don't know the exact circumstances, that was still like a really sketchy situation to be in. So do we, like I said, do we turn a blind eye to greatness?
Yeah, I think it happens far too often in sports where we idolize all these athletes and we totally turn a blind eye on anything that they do that's absolutely criminal or really suspect. It's really sad. Like what are we telling our children? Like what are we telling each other? It's sad. It's sad, and you see it time and time again. Like you can name so many athletes that just have done terrible things, but we somehow forgive them. or we just don't talk about it after a while, and we're like, yeah, this guy is the greatest person ever, and we pretend like this guy is the greatest person ever. Yeah, it's tragic, but that's the kind of society we live in.
I think it also depends on how that person is viewed by like outside people, because you'll still hear the odd comment about Ben Roethlisberger and what happened with him, but you didn't really after a while out with Kobe. Is that because he, I don't know, got along better with people, or he seemed like different than Ben did? Ben does, I should say. Um, I don't know. It's weird because yeah, it's definitely, hey, you helped my team win, so no fault type thing. That's definitely a thing that happens. And if you're not a fan of the franchise, you'll definitely be more likely to say, hey, but he did this. So that also is a factor, right? Because you'll definitely hear about Ben Roethlisberger a lot more, that comment outside of Pittsburgh, than you ever would in Pittsburgh. So, right, and like if he's playing for your city and he's helping you win or do something, you're less likely to.
Yeah, turn that blind eye. You're kind of like, it's just an allegation kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you're willing
yeah.
to kind of like believe what you want to believe because it benefits you.
Yeah,
Especially if he's like, I'm like kind of what Stefan was saying. Like, especially if he's
Mhm.
like your favorite player or your
Mhm,
favorite
mhm.
team. It's just like, fuck, man, like you idolize this guy. You have posters up on his wall and on your wall and stuff, and it's just like shit. Like now he's done these things. I'm like, do I forgive him? Am I more easier? Like, am I more lenient to forgive him, or this person, whoever it is, because he is my favorite player, So,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I think we do turn a blind eye to those things happen off the court, and at the end of the day, it's like, man, like these athletes, like they get signed so early, like so young in their careers, and it's just like they're like kids with like money, like millionaires, so
Mhm.
like teenagers, right? They didn't go through like all that work and stuff, like like that hard work and like we've went through, in our
Mhm.
lives, right? So I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to use that as an excuse, but I think that
Mhm.
kind of like just the immaturity is there. A lot of immaturity is present, and I think that kind of leads and trickles into them making poor decisions. So
Mhm.
Yeah, they haven't heard no a lot in their life, right? And yeah, I guess that messes you up. Not to make an excuse or anything like that, but I think it shows you what kind of life they live, like always getting what they want.
Mhm.
And now that they're in the limelight, they get even more of that. And it's big business, right? Like NBA, they not that they not I'm not saying they cover this up, but they want to portray their players the best they can, right? Like they want
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
advertise their players to be like these great people on the court and off the court, and they have all these initiatives where they go and do like charity work and all that. Um, so it's just a like an image thing, right? Like that they do. They want to make sure that their players have the best image possible, even if they're rapists, even if they're criminals, just so it's business as usual. Because these are their big assets in their company, right?
The problem is that the players are assets in a sense, like their image is important, right?
Mhm.
To their financial well-being and to the financial well-being of the league, right? It's not so much like, so you can't even separate like what they do in their personal life from their net worth because the two things are so intertwined, right? It would be different if like if these people just weren't famous and what they did in the background didn't affect their on-court product or whatever product it is that they're part of at all. But because their brand, like the Kobe logo or the Kobe shoe, like all this stuff is worth so much money, they have to make him seem like, a clean cut all American dude to maximize the profits. I'm just thinking like if he was like an employee at like an accounting firm, right? And he's like the best accountant ever, right? But what he does in the background, no one would even know, right? All we get is at the end of the year we get our books done by the guy, and the books are always have no mistakes, right? Like what happens in the background, we wouldn't even care. But in this case, I feel like because we sit in the stands or we go to Foot Locker and buy his shoes, we are kind of supporting the dude personally, right? If we keep supporting him. And then I feel like, that what does that say about us? I think that's what you're trying to ask, right? Like, what does it say about all of us? Because all of us love Kobe at some level.
In like a smaller version of that, like of that whole uh controversy, like we had Terence Davis, who was accused of beating his wife, right, or not, his partner. And so like one side of me was like, oh man, I hope it's not true, but on the other side, and I hope this, and the other side was like, well, the whole sports aspect of it. Well, now maybe he's gonna get traded, maybe he's gonna be released, maybe he's gonna be found guilty, and then who knows what happens. So like there's all these emotions that go on for you as a fan, right? But then I kind of took a step back. I'm like, if this guy did this, man, I don't want this guy to be on the team, man. It just sets a terrible example for kids and fans everywhere. Like as a guy, doing this kind of stuff is that's horrible, man. And so many people that look up to you. So I kind of see why people just turn a blind eye to this, but we need to really just stop and just kind of take a step back and say, hey, this is not about sports. Like this is a person that has done something terrible to another person.
And the thing is, like, shoot, like, I mean, like, you have kids looking up to these guys too. It's just like, I think, like, kind of Jay Sean was saying earlier, but like, are we like now? Do we teach them about like forgiveness? Like, Kobe did go on like national TV, apologize and stuff like that. Like, are like, I don't know. It's
Well,
are they? Do we even?
He apologized for adultery. He never said that he raped her.
Yeah, right? Exactly. But I don't know. It's like such a I don't know. Do we just forgive everyone that does something like this? Like, just hopefully they don't do it again, or something like that. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's no answer to that.
No.
Yeah.
There absolutely isn't. That's why I kind of wanted to talk
give
about
him another
it.
chance. Like, you're good now. But
I mean, in Kobe's case, in the latter part of his career, the thing was, it seemed like at least his image was that he became like a family guy, right?
Yes.
And his wife stayed with him. He raised a bunch of girls. From everything we can see and in the media, maybe that's not accurate, but he seemed like he had turned it around, right? In fairness, right? We don't know much about the details necessarily, but we should give him that much at least. And I think if a dude actually, I mean, you got to think that we should be forgiven for stuff we've done in the past. Otherwise, we'd all be carrying all this baggage in our lives forever. That's part of being a human being too.
Yes. And this kind of, you guys already brought it up, but this is going to be my last topic, is do you think that as a professional athlete, you should be a role model to kids or just in general, and you need to be this squeaky clean, like have this squeaky clean image?
No, you're just a dude who's born and really good at sport. That's like, in all honesty, that's your thing, right? So is every single kid going to be born like that and I want to be just like Gronk, I want to be able to score touchdowns? Well, good news, you probably won't be. So whatever. Listen to that guy who knows a thing or two about a book. Like, I understand not all sports players are jocks and all this other shit or whatever, but just because they play sports doesn't mean they're Mother Teresa, in all honesty. They had that whole thing when Gronk was going around taking photos with porn stars, and I was like, oh, won't everybody think of the children? Well, who cares? He's living his life. Just leave the guy alone.
Mother Teresa was a racist. I'm just throwing it out here. I'm serious.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So Gronk is not a racist based on the fact that he's not like Mother Teresa. Thank you for connecting the dots.
I think they two sides of the story here, but I think they kind of should be role models. But at the same time, man, if if this guy's getting me looking at it like an owner sample. This guy's getting me like fucking 30 points a game, 30 rebounds a game. Who gives a shit? Like it's kind of like I don't know. It's like a. But my first initial answer is like, yeah, I think they should be role models to some extent. You know.
I mean, being a role model is one thing, but criminal activity is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
true,
should
true,
probably
true.
say that
Yeah.
whether they purposely want to make their image extra good or not for the sake of being a role model is up to them, but they probably shouldn't be committing criminal acts. Period.
Yeah.
Let's just I don't care how good they are as athletes. Let's just
Yeah,
at least say
But isn't that true of like, Joe Schmo at the bank? Like, don't kill anyone. Don't
Yeah, it is.
You don't have to be a role model to not do that kind of shit.
Yeah. But for them, because they're in the public eye, when you do that stuff, it becomes a million times worse, right? Every kid sees it. So, I mean, it is a thing. Like, whether you want people to see it or not, you do this stuff, more people are going to see it. You have such a big catchment area, right? Like, it does matter.
Yeah, I tend to agree that I think I agree with everyone in every aspect in the sense that it's to yes to an extent, but no to another. Just as Stefan said, they're just a person who happens to be good at a sport. It doesn't mean that they're going to be this ideal for everybody. And I think, Dave, you just kind of really hit the nail on the head when you said that their lives are in the spotlight. If their personal lives weren't in the spotlight at all with social media and just all the other things, it'd probably be less of an issue. If we just saw them on the court and like heard them after the game and that was all we saw of them, I'm sure it'd be much easier to be a role model in that, or just like present your image in such a way. But the fact that there's people taking videos of you basically everywhere because you're famous, right? So you can't do something that is not good, quote unquote, and it could just be something casual. I'm not saying they're committing a crime, but maybe not something that the NBA or whatever league they're in would find PC.
Oh, no, maybe before NBA games, they should have like a disclaimer. You might see rapists, criminals on the court. Before a soccer game, the following athletes have been found guilty of this, and this. Disclaimers.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah.
Wait, is blood doping okay?
Yeah, that's another advisory.
Yeah, I don't envy anybody who's famous. When you can't literally go outside without someone recording or taking a picture of you and scrutinizing you for every single thing. I cannot imagine just not being able to live.
Yeah, if you actually see a lot of the people who become super rich destroys them somehow, right? Like these crazy celebrities end up like Tiger Woods, right? Like their life.
Oh yeah.
Like almost nobody envies their life in a way, right? Even though they're massively successful and have every material item in the world, right? So it's weird. Like we envy it, but at the same time we don't.
Which is why the winning strategy is and has always been do everything to stay squeaky clean for your first contract, get your second big payday, and then stop caring. You're already rich beyond anybody's thing. Like, screw it. Who cares? Yeah, you caught me at a strip club. Whatever.
There could be worse things.
So what stage of your contract are you at, Stefan?
Oh, I've been at stage 2 forever.
Strip club every night, hookers, drugs, alcohol every night.
That's why his background is blurred.
Yo, he's just Paul Pierce. He's just smart about it, man.
Exactly. So
There's
get in the back.
We know.
Hey, I too had a better career than Dwayne Wade.
Since we're talking about basketball, the NBA is the one league that has all these weird stories, like the Paul Pierce, Tim Duncan, even the LeBron story a few years ago, that exists in this other part of the internet that you can't see if you go on ESPN. You can only read about it on Reddit.
The only place to get your news. Oh, good times, guys. All right, well, thanks, guys, for joining me for today. It was a fun and definitely enlightening conversation. And it's always great to hear your insights on everything. So, Dave, would just one last thing about that book. Would you recommend reading it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great book. If you guys love Shaq and Kobe and reminiscing about that era, like almost all basketball fans that are in our age group remember that team. Like, it's a really fun read. So check it out.
All right, and yeah, make sure you check out Dave's
Is there-
podcast as well.
Is there a movie on the book? Because you know me.
Books are hard to read, man. Audiobook.
Audiobook it. It is, yeah, audiobook.
Stefan, just read me the book every night, okay? I'll
Oh God, that's not going to end well.
Stefan's busy. He's on his second contract still.
It's okay. It's okay if you got hookers in the background and strippers. Don't worry about it.
Got it.
Or alternatively, you can listen to Dave's podcast because he talks about it for an hour.
That sounds way easier.
Anyways, everyone, thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
See ya.